I'm David Waterfall. This is Andrew Bartzis.
How you doing?
This is part
15?
15, 13, 14, 16.
16.
Part 16. And we're going to continue our discussion about soul families. And we talked about discernment. I think we've kind of skipped that. But there's an interesting concept called commerce that I think Andrew's talked about on his radio shows of what that means.
Yes. Soul families share knowledge. Knowledge is experience, and experience is wealth on the soul family level. When one soul can go through an experience and share it with the all of those gain the benefit, and consciousness of that soul family continues to expand and expand and expand. And you can have one version of yourself on one world and another version of yourself on another world, and several other soul family members on other world who all come together in a place of commerce and exchange information, technology, resources, and spiritual wealth, so that they can come together at another point with all of these tools in place and experiences in place to go on a consciousness exploration adventure.
So 3 soul families join together like a tribe.
Yep.
And they go off and
Do something,
together.
gain that experience as a soul lineage, and then they have the possibility of learning how to extend a contract with a universe or a galaxy, so they become a star.
So that's an aspiration.
Correct. Or a central, a star in the central location, right around the central sun, which would be the highest vibration.
Now that would seem kind of boring. Being a sun, just hot.
You're not just a sun. When a series of soul lineages come together to extend a single contract to a galaxy to become a sun, there's energetic cities inside there, and the suns can physically move like many of the planets can. They invite things in their soul lineage to come and be the center of soul commerce for the solar system and planets that are inviting people to incarnate.
And does this new sun, which is a collection of these soul families, is it gaining wisdom?
Yes. It is gaining wisdom by allowing others into its local reality solar system to gain wisdom and knowledge. And it will need all sorts, the highest of intelligence, the middle intelligence, and the lowest intelligences, to create a sine wave of consciousness that's rotating around a galactic central sun.
And then after a sun, what's the next step?
Creating a galaxy.
So there are more of these soul families that
That
become
can create,
planets or
right.
suns. And so from a galaxy it would go to...
Well, you only can be a galaxy. You can't create your other universe yet. You have to go to visit all the other universes before you get to create a universe.
So a galaxy then goes from galaxy to galaxy and then joins to larger galaxies, or?
Sort of. There's the Galactic Prime Creator, which is the central sun of each galaxy. You can be a galaxy, but not the central sun. So when you extend a contract for a galaxy, that means a group of soul lineages, which were stars, which were suns, all come together to say, we're going to use our essence to house life that will offer the Galactic Prime Creator to create a central sun, and then soul families will come and with that Galactic Prime Creator make star systems, and we house that galaxy. And as that galaxy's sentience, total sentience, begins to expand, the people that came together to form that galaxy in conjunction with the Galactic Prime Creator and the central sun are expanding their galaxy through consciousness.
So let's say I'm part of a soul family of 12. Is that soul family also a galaxy? Could that wouldn't be one and the same, or that wouldn't?
No, that's more on a micro level versus the macro level. When you're looking at the soul family basics like that, you may have aspirations to reach that, and that may be your theme, that you all do that relatively at the same time.
Right.
Or you all could become, 8 planets in a solar system, or 8 moons, or something to that effect, whatever it is you were able to manifest.
So all the souls that are ready for graduation, those aren't prior planets or suns that came through this experience.
There are people that were planets or stars. Planets. Well, there's no sun beings, full sun beings on our planet now, though in the past there were.
But that wouldn't be unusual for a sun to say, I want to go through the The Earth.
I'll make an aspect and then come through the Earth sun and then incarnate on our world. Yes, another sun from another galaxy.
Is that a typical path, or?
It does happen in intergalactic commerce, but they don't make it well known. Okay.
So is that going back? Is that like going back to school and repeating a grade, or is that doing?
No, it's more like they're recruiting migration patterns from parts of the universe, or reaching out to another universe to say, I need this type of soul. I have this in my solar system now, and I'm willing to trade, and these are all free-willed entities who are willing to go on the experience.
So in a sense, they're if I understand it, by the sun sharing their energy and their wisdom, that's some commerce, and so
Yep.
the exchange is that you also come to my solar system and we'll do a trade.
And we'll do a trade, a free-willed, free sovereign trade, because all those entities want that experience in your place.
Because the vibration, if you will, the wisdom of that being incarnating helps my space, and so
Exactly.
then I'll send my people there. It's kind of like a football.
Yep.
Or basketball, you have the trade. You have the
trade.
star player, and you give 5 for 1.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Interesting. So, getting back to discernment, which was what I promised 2 episodes ago to talk about, discernment is the path towards knowledge.
Discernment is the human linguistics path toward knowledge. The spiritual person, discernment is in your heart space. It's instantaneous and it's not a thought pattern.
Mm-hmm. So when I discern, I'm discerning what my truth is or what the truth is.
What your matrix truth is, and what your heart's truth is.
The
We're in
matrix,
duality.
the matrix truth in terms of what's being presented to me,
Correct?
which could be an illusion,
Correct?
versus the absolute truth of what I know to be true at that point of consciousness.
Or your heart's expression of spirituality that transcends the matrix and allows you to have a linguistics with unlimited vowels and consonants.
So my understanding of truth could be different relative to my soul's development.
Correct.
Which means that truth is all relative to
And
my
subjective.
perspective. And it's subjective.
Mhm.
So there is no absolute truth.
There's only perspective of truth.
Hence your challenge to, when I ask a question, you're answering to my truth.
No, I'm answering to the entire audience's amalgamation of truth because I've lived in every soul family.
I see. And so you're balancing, everyone that's watching this broadcast, you're trying to match collectively
Match.
what that relative truth is, so they're getting the answer, if you will. But another person asking that at a higher or lower perspective might get a different answer.
Correct.
So that they could receive the exchange
Correct.
of
And I'm
information.
maintaining quantum no time so that the linguistics barrier and limitations aren't a limitation or barrier because the vibration, intonation, and energy is of the sacred neutral with the Akashic record, which is an unmistakable sensation to the heart space.
So your words are air blowing over your vocal cords, but in fact the information being shared is at multiple levels.
Correct.
I'm discerning through my ears the words and translating to my concepts, but you're actually giving a no-time definition that could be received in multiple levels
Correct.
across all galaxies and universes.
All sentience observing.
So it's not just me having a conversation. The whole universe is listening into this conversation and receiving a different answer based on the...
Correct, because the universe is collective consciousness in its biggest perspective.
So obviously as you go down the rabbit hole,
It gets deep.
it gets deeper and deeper, and you have to pause,
Yeah.
have lunch,
Mm-hmm.
think about it,
Mhm.
enjoy the experience. So back to discernment. I think in my current life, and I think many others, the media has done a great job of giving the truth, which is their job, but the agendas of the people presenting the truth are not always consistent. So some media is very honest, their intentions very honest, could be co-opted, where other media is very deliberately trying to steer you in one direction. The same in the New Age movement,
Mm-hmm.
the same through all the religions, and I think there's probably a bias that said if it's an Eastern religion it must be obviously better than a Western religion, because Eastern is so old. But trying to navigate that and trying to figure out, so what is truth and how do I reach that state of alignment is a big challenge. Big challenge. And so how do I, and I know that's not your job, at least I don't think it is, how does a human being discern whether they're being fooled? And maybe that...
It comes to your heart's awareness and how in line your mind and your heart are.
So is it how I feel about it?
It's not feel. When you experience consciousness through your heart and not through your brain, it's an indescribable separation where there is no separation before. You have separation, we have the separation of worlds. Your heart and your mind are separate until you learn the consciousness techniques to make them one and the same.
So they work together.
In synchronicity.
Synchronicity. So there's the mental aspect of organizing the data, and then there's that vibrational piece where you're feeling, do I have everything in order?
And adjust the data to match it.
Adjust the data. So we call that in my work data massaging.
Yep.
And there's an art form, right?
Yep.
You're trying to distill the complex into the simple.
Correct.
So your heart is doing that intuitively.
Correct.
And your mind is like trying to keep track, but at some point the complexity exceeds the mind's ability.
Correct.
Hence the heart, in fact, is probably the supermind, because it actually can take the infinity and break it down into
finite pieces that are decipherable and digestible.
In terms of a feeling of, is that right?
That's just about right. I mean,
yeah, just about.
I mean,
but an approximation, you're close.
You're really close. I mean, it's very, very good that you described it that way. I mean, what I have to add to that, the heart itself is where your soul originated from. When you're a fetus, you start out as a heart with a brain inside the heart. There's actually a piece of brain matter inside your heart.
In the heart.
Like the actual heart. Like when you watch a fetus grow, it is a heart with a brain and a beginning spinal column. And then as the heart grows, the skeleton grows out, and the spine grows up and makes a brain. So the brain isn't formed until weeks later, but the heart's there first. There's an actual brain in the heart. So when you reach consciousness exploration and realize that this brain, its energy center, is projected from the heart, everything goes into the ladder of the heart. And therefore, the heart can experience the no time while the brain's still functioning with the data.
In this piece.
Right.
So can you see that?
I can physically see that in streams in front of people.
You can see it, but could I see it without my third eye activated?
Your third eye is always activated. It's a matter if you have the ability to understand the third eye is not just a reception device, but it's a projection device too. Inside your third eye are rods and cones and liquid, just like an eye, but what that means is the rods and cones can take the standing wave pattern inside the gray matter, and the gray matter is the projection screen, and the data is in the screen, and just the third eye needs to project energy with intent for the data to come forward, and I would visually see it in this cortex here, as well as when my eyes closed in this cortex here.
So like a heads-up display.
Correct. Inside your psychic perceptions.
And for you, you don't need to close your eyes to see that information.
No, I can overlay it over you because I've mastered that part of my third eye projection.
And so do you consciously pull up the display when you're looking and then drop it when you're not?
At times I don't even have the display active. I can read it without any visual cues.
Because you're using a different part of your...
Correct.
So back to the heart piece then, this piece has a brain as well. Could I see it with a microscope? Or
yes, you can actually find a piece of brain tissue on your heart on a microscope.
And it has science identified that as the brain?
Yeah, the science has identified it in every book out there on anatomy and physiology.
What do they call it?
The brain and the heart.
But in the heart, did they say this is the brain of the heart? There's actually a...
No, there's a brain tissue there.
Okay.
That identifies it as brain tissue from the fetus creation.
So I went to Google and I Googled the heart, and they mapped everything. I would see this little arrow and saying this is the
Correct.
brain of the heart.
Where the fetus first started. You'd have to look at a chart where the fetus is growing.
And that's where the brain is.
That's where the brain is.
Okay, so the two brains working together. And then how does the throat chakra blend?
The throat is how we translate into our culture. Our contracts interfunction between our brain and our heart. Fine print in our brain, true contracts in our heart. That's the separation.
And so when they come together,
You have limitation or expression.
so discernment is both the perception and the processing.
Correct.
I don't need to disseminate. I could be a hermit and I could understand truth, but the throat chakra allows you to share truth.
With vibration from the heart as part of a projection.
So I could create disinformation
Yes.
with that projection.
Or you can create true information by projecting no time with it, so the sentience that's receiving that energy understands this is not a violation of free will, this is no time data stream from the Earth Akashic record, and the entity that's reading it is in resonance with the Earth Akashic record, therefore it is truth. And the heart recognizes it truth because the heart is the resonance field that's part of the bioelectric field of Earth.
So I have the ability to discern truth using those abilities. I
Correct.
also have the choice to discern disinformation, or
Correct.
like 99% truth and 1%.
Correct.
And that could be either conscious or unconsciously.
Correct.
Based on the programming or the misperceptions that I have.
Correct.
And ultimately we're all on a journey of understanding what truth is, and so we probably can't be expected to always share what is truth.
Correct.
Could be misunderstood
Mhm.
innocently.
Very much. And many knowledge that was brought here to free Earth was misused and misunderstood by both sides.
So to share misinformation by itself is not lying, unless there's a conscious understanding and an intention to deceive or manipulate you
Correct.
for a particular benefit,
Correct.
for commerce, if you will,
Correct.
a stealing of information.
Correct.
So how does a person discern truth when there are just multiple sources, the internet, we're all saying, I'm true, I'm true, I'm true.
Mhm.
That's overwhelming.
It's a smorgasbord.
Yeah, it's a huge buffet.
And everyone thinks they're the only truth.
I've heard that before, the one-way thing.
Okay? That is the first discernment level. Is it one way? The world isn't one way. It's an infinite amount of ways.
So that's the first checklist.
That's
If
the
someone
first
says that I have the truth, you go, okay, obviously you don't. Move on, next.
Mhm. Well, from the galactic historian perspective, I experience that all the time. That's why I speak the way that I do and project the energy that I do, because I know inside that human body you have a set of receptors that are built into your DNA to identify truth from the Akashic record linked to the Earth Akashic mind.
Mhm.
You just don't have the user manual to pay attention to it. And there are people that have figured out parts of the user manual that are light workers, that are healers, that are dream
Mhm.
protectors. And I know there's enough out there that they can receive the message and then translate it to a message that's a scale down, which will be passed on. That's why it has to be to the highest energy.
So what you're saying is, even though it is very complex, it's a very complex game, that there are people that have discerned the truth and are disseminating that very truthfully,
And broadcasting it omnidirectional through their field.
just by being in their presence.
Correct.
And that it may not be one person broadcasting 100% of the truth, but a collection of people together
Mhm.
create an overlay that provides that truth that you are getting a sense.
Correct.
And that when you're within a community of people that are in their truth, so to speak, that it creates a vibration that allows you to start hearing or feeling
Exactly.
and sensing that something feels right.
Mhm.
So what are some cues that people need to, what's kind of a simple checklist in terms of, as I come into a group that could be called a cult, how do I sense that, no, this is not a cult, these people are totally giving truth, versus they're giving me 80% truth, but they're taking that 20% that's not truthful and steering me into some kind of contract.
Well, that's some of the more details of discernment, and that requires intuition. Intuition is linked to the heart, but functions through the mind and is part of the senses.
Mm-hmm.
And people can fool the senses really easy. So intuition is one of those heart space things that needs to be regularly used, and the rust shaken off it. Otherwise, you can be easily deceived. So when you use intuition on people and you begin to read people, are they broadcasting everything that you expect them to broadcast?
Mm-hmm.
or are they putting on something fake? I mean, you've walked into a room and you know that, they were just saying something they didn't want anyone else to hear because they're hushed all the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's discernment right there. And then there's another kind of discernment, like a woman's in a bar and a guy goes to hit on her. No, that's a different discernment. That's an intuitive discernment.
Right.
So there's many layers to discernment too.
So everyone really has the ability to read each other.
Yes, it's just a matter if you process it and accept it.
And that you're fully accepting responsibility for your awareness. Although it's very easy if you've had a trauma or you've had a difficult childhood, that you may block out
Correct.
the feelings because you're afraid you'll be hurt.
Correct.
Or
And I experience that frequently in readings, and that's when I don't push it, because I don't violate the sovereign free will of entities. Where others and the light workers will push and push and push till they get the healing.
It's free will, right? So
Correct.
if they're not ready for the healing, it's not. There's no healing if you're creating and pushing a healing. It's not going to stick, or is it?
It can be a school of hard knocks healing.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about healing, you're talking about the removal of a barrier, or the sharing of an idea.
It can be all of that and above and more.
I mean, healing is kind of a very broad topic.
Let's say they're recovering from a car accident,
Mm-hmm.
and a healer is going to, well, let's say, pushing it. You got into your car accident because of this psychic incident, this psychic incident,
Mm-hmm.
this psychic incident, this psychic attack. They kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and that person isn't ready to talk about ghosts. Whether or not he realized, as an example, a guy pulls off the side of the road because he saw a person there, didn't want to hit him, he never saw the person again. That's a ghost incident. The psychic may push and push and push, and his mind's just not ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll wake them up, but that's force awakening.
And what's the
Fear
blowback?
is a result.
Fear is a result.
As part of a habit pattern with that. That's why so many people, first impression of fear, it ends their impression of it forever. They can't explore that topic because they're afraid from the beginning.
And so part of our growth is to uncover our fears and look at our fears as these little treasure chests that hold really valuable information to consciousness.
Exactly.
And that a fear is just right there. It's a little golden chest just waiting to be opened. And the fear is opening it, when in fact it's kind of, the paradox is that as you open it, you win the prize.
Exactly.
And so what healers do, the good healers, is facilitate that discovery of the treasure chests, and then the courage to open the chest, because what's in there obviously creates potentially guilt, shame, or the fear of that there's going to be guilt or shame.
Mm-hmm. You got it.
Okay. So it's not complicated.
It just takes time to process it and use discernment,
Right.
so that you've processed right.
So
It's a different form of discernment.
So it doesn't require a college degree. It doesn't require someone to be highly intelligent in the sense of a high IQ.
Nope.
It just requires someone using common sense in terms of when a situation occurs, are they aware of how they feel about it?
Mm-hmm.
And are they aware of what they chose to do?
Mm-hmm.
Were they aware of the consequence? And then are they willing to repeat that consequence on a regular basis, or choose a different action if that consequence gives them a negative outcome?
Exactly.
And so it's kind of like Groundhog Day.
Yep.
And after a while, you're like, I'd
I've
really
had
like to
that.
date that girl, and I keep pissing her off, and so I don't want to stop. I want to stop stepping into that puddle, and so you go take a little bit off to that. Okay. So discernment is not complicated. It just requires a practice, a daily practice.
Slowing information down. The world moves really fast.
Right.
Once you slow it down, that's another layer to discernment. It's knowing when to slow it down, because there's things hidden in it of misunderstanding. They could easily be misunderstood because the data is moving so fast.
And so as you're running, if you think that you have to go fast, then you're actually missing, which is right here, you've gone past it. And so
Exactly.
actually the people that speak slowly, I found, sometimes are the most aware. And that the people who speak fast, myself included, sometimes you overshoot.
Correct.
And so actually it's not a game of intellect, it's a game of awareness.
Absolutely. It's always awareness and consciousness.
Yeah.
It always stems down to that for the value in this universe.
So every human being has that ability
Absolutely.
to discern and become conscious, no
And
matter
sovereign.
and sovereign,
Mhm.
no matter where they are in the scheme, whether you're penniless or you're homeless,
Exactly.
or you're a very smart person in a very important job, or you're a politician. We all have the same path,
Correct.
and there's nothing easier or harder except for dealing with the perceived fear that if I really look at myself and who I am and what I've done, whether I'm able to accept that, and then the commitment, which is your choice, right?
Mhm.
Whether you want to go forward, to act on and do something different.
Exactly.
And free will says you can do the same thing you want in infinity
Mhm.
until you're ready to do something different.
Mhm.
And that's okay.
And that's okay too.
And you can steal as often as you want, and you can do those things, but there'll be a consequence.
Mhm.
But ultimately, when you're done and you realize that the wealth is within inside, then you can choose something different, and you've lost nothing, but
And gained everything.
Gained everything, exactly. So no one's lost anything. People in prison, people have done bad things. The moment of truth is when you realize, okay, that wasn't such a good idea, but I learned so much.
Mhm. Retrospection is one of the greatest human tools.
So no matter my choices, I become wealthy.
Absolutely.
Just choose. Okay. Well, this has been a great episode.
Oh yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
That ends. I'm David Waterful. Andrew Bartzis. Thank you for this time with us. Take care.
Welcome back to our Galactic History. This is part 17. I want to thank David Waterfall for stepping in yesterday and doing several segments that are absolutely wonderful, powerful segments. And I was able to watch one of them, and it's just got some tremendous information.
Right.
Very practical stuff. Today is June 24th. We are still at Mount Shasta at the
Stuart Mineral Springs.
Stuart Mineral Springs Lodge,
Mhm.
right?
Did you get yourself a soak?
Yes, I did. Sulfur bath. Yes, I did. And I ended up having a little too much of a soak. On certain parts of my body got too much soak. So yes, I've recovered from that already. And we're talking. My name's Lance White, as you know. And as you must know by now, this is Andrew Bartzis,
Hey.
And welcome back to
Thank
the
you.
show.
Thank you for having me. It's
Thank
been
you
an
for-
outstanding interview, and thank you, David, too.
Yeah. So today we decided to go into a subject that probably everybody is curious about, and a lot of people have more information about, and that is the pyramids.
Oh, good subject.
Yes, let's start with the basics. That I'm just going to pretend like I know nothing about them.
Okay.
First of all, how old are the pyramids? When were they built? And
Foundations of Earth. When Earth became its
Oh.
first seventh dimensional galactic sleep planet, the first set of pyramids came from other worlds and landed on Earth right after she had formed her planet and made her an energy body. Those pyramids landed on her brand new energy grid surface from being a freshly born planet, and they melded with that, and the consciousness of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other worlds focused into the polyhedron, tetrahedron, dodecahedron energy field above each pyramid grid, and put their consciousness into Earth and raised it all of its dimensions and finished its energy birthing process till it was a seventh dimensional seed planet with all the finished consciousness that it needed. So that's the first layer of pyramids that created.
wow.
Second, third, and fourth consciousnesses who were, we'll just say, other planets that were there to immediately bring immigration life force to the planet. So
Uh-huh.
right away people can say, that's my spot, put up a for sale sign, I got all this space over here if you want to come in.
Right.
Okay, they open the planet up, so trillions of entities born into Earth, and we're the first consciousness exploration group of Earth, but they weren't from Earth itself. She had
Okay.
not spawned her first. This is
Okay.
the first consciousness that comes to a planet. Well, they came here, experienced the energy of recreation, regeneration, and then the first opening of the womb chakras. And these are a band of chakras around the equator that go above and below the equator and above and below the equator all throughout there. And then there's peaks at the North Pole, the South Pole, and spread all over the islands near volcanoes and stuff.
Mhm.
And these womb chakras opened up and blossomed the first species of Earth. New pyramid grids were then brought into these womb chakra areas and built around them in a circle, semicircle, square, or a type of sacred geometry, which would amplify the energy of those womb chakras into consciousness exploring energy for those people that lived around there. In Syria, in Israel, why there's war there all the time is because those consciousness expanding devices are becoming active again. And they need to suppress that. And they need to suppress the awakening of the womb chakra. The pyramid's whole purpose is to take the energy of friction and vibration in a crustal plate and then convert that energy through vibration into free available consciousness expansion energy to those that live within a certain vicinity of the pyramids.
Okay, when you say three types of consciousness, or
Any type of it's like free energy, but it's free consciousness energy.
free consciousness energy.
Right. It's
Okay,
to constantly put you in a raised energy system so that you're expanding your understanding, you're always in a knowledge and seeking state. Well, not always. You're in a knowledge and seeking state with an unlimited amount of energy, the ability to be in no time, the ability to multifunction, multidimensional. So you have all the energy that's required to do whatever the consciousness exploration craft it is that you're doing.
Okay, then the pyramids are really, technically speaking, the pyramids came in with the creation of Earth, so they're at least as old as the Earth, which would be
Correct.
7+ billion years.
Correct.
Okay. Did they look like
They were metal first.
They were metal.
They were metals first.
Were they ships?
No, they were ships, yes, but they could also put out a flash of energy, so anything that was in this area could be dimensionally transported anywhere in the universe.
Wow.
There were also people mover exchange systems, commerce systems, everything functioned through them because the consciousness of the planet was supplying the energy that's needed to do the data calculations to transfer from this planet to that galaxy over there.
And so then the womb chakras on the Earth would then produce the templates for new life, and then it would be seeded, and would it go through the pyramids, or just
It could go the people that live around the womb chakras, they become DNA artists.
Oh.
The master plant people.
Oh.
They grow stuff too, and they literally prepare fresh plants, fresh trees to be inserted into that new reality and to be spread and to be propagated. So they do have nurseries. So Earth is a galactic nursery in another layer. When that stuff comes to fruition, you're ready to bring it to a blank planet, you can transport it direct from where it is, and then instantaneously the surface area with dirt is overlaid on top of that fresh planet, bonded to it energetically, and then all the other local realities are patched in around that. So until they totally patch up the planet with local realities, then the planet itself's consciousness absorbs all that and removes the stitching system.
Wow.
And therefore it is a complete planet.
Wow.
With DNA records that have been sent there from Earth. So there's a long list of stuff people can choose to be whatever they want.
Wow. Now, much of that has been corrupted over the
Correct.
millions of years. Okay, so, and we've talked a lot about that. So the original pyramids functioned as they were supposed to for millions of years.
Millions and millions of years.
Or billions
The
of years.
stone pyramids we have today
Right.
are recreations of those.
Ah.
Because there were species here that tried to make another seventh dimensional galactic seed planet. It required the consciousness of thousands of stars to get Earth to even attempt at it. And there were other people that tried to become the first seventh dimensional seed planet. Many of them just were never able to get there. It's just the requirement of soul families on the scale of trillions to be able to get it done. I mean, that consciousness ultimately knew that the gift Earth was giving the universe, as well as on a karmic level. I mean, it's been corrupted, but it is the best planet to do it.
Wow. And so the densification process, which has taken us down to lower third, has really limited Earth's ability to do what it was.
Correct.
Yeah, its intention, and then Prime Creator is in the process.
Screwing the management up.
Right. Which
Pink slips.
Yes, and all of that is coming down now. So these original thousands of beings that came through the first pyramid set, they were all from different galaxies, and
They were all from this galaxy,
okay.
but they had ultimately immigrated from another universe
Uh,
or from another universe to another galaxy to there to get there. They were
Yeah.
summoned from the 17 universes. Were all
Okay.
given a call to come there, and whatever they could bring there resource-wise so that that project could succeed.
Okay. And then, is it true that each entity or being that comes into the planet has to have been stepped down through the various stages?
Correct.
They have to pick up the codes of the solar codes
To get there.
and each planetary code in the universe in which they're going.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm guessing that the original inhabitants of Earth in the billions of years ago were non-corporeal. That is, they were
They were both.
both. Okay.
They were
All right.
multidimensional.
Okay, and none of them were Earth people, right? Because there
All
was
came
no
from
such
other
thing as an Earth
people.
person.
Exactly.
There's just a planet that's okay.
That supports any consciousness life existing there as long as it's in agreement to create biological resources to seed a whole new galaxy.
Okay.
That's their contract. To be farmers, to be healers, to bring that that is everything that's needed to bring the prized trees. I mean, trees are rare now. And we throw them away here because trees are consciousness.
Ah, yes,
Okay.
yes.
We're modifying that planet by bringing tree consciousness, plant consciousness, stone consciousness, human consciousness, or dogs and cats, and all that stuff adds to the whole communion of nature there.
And then
The
part
microorganisms.
right, everything, the bacteria and
Yeah.
so on. So what's happened when, as we become cut off from source through baptism and vaccinations and so on, and mind and the etheric satellites and the rest of it, we lose touch with the truth, which is that the trees are sentient beings.
Correct.
Everything is sentient.
Sentience.
It all has a guiding spiritual life force.
Mhm.
And so, through the process of converting us into a materialistic society, moving us away from the true value of energy,
You're getting it.
we get screwed because then, what's a tree? Cut it down. But the tree may be screaming, and there may be divas and elementals that are just furious because you just cut down their city.
Yeah.
New York fell.
Yeah.
You know,
We 9/11 them.
yeah, and people just have no clue. Walking down a sidewalk and tossing cigarettes down and whatever, just even little gestures that are unconscious because we have lost our connection to the unity of all life and the spirit of all life. And that seems to be something that light workers and many others and spiritual people, some religious people, are working on reconnecting with a source, meaning your own source,
Your own
you,
source.
and it's within.
Correct.
And then once you do that, you recognize the value of life in yourself, and it's reflected like a mirror in everyone around you. And so, okay, so I'm getting sidetracked. I'm going off on a tangent, but okay.
Human Handbook, line 19, tangents. Section 19, how to deal with tangents.
Right. Well, when do we get our handbook? Well, this is it.
This is it.
This is it. We're
That's
doing
it.
the handbook right now, and everybody who comes along and talks to you, this is okay. So, all right. So for billions of years, there were the metallic pyramids. What else existed on the planet? What did these beings create?
They created other sacred geometry systems out of crystal,
Oh,
out of metals,
ooh.
out of even they would weave specific trees to grow in a pattern to make a dome of consciousness.
Ooh. Air cities?
Air cities within those domes of trees because they were
Ooh.
creating their own reality.
Yeah, wow.
And when they were able to get trees to be massive and to intertwine into an air city consciousness, they bonded with the earth, bonded with the trees, and could go out and use the spiritual commerce that I talked about in the episode with David Waterfall, that those trees would say, hey, they're giving everything that we want here, come and live here, and you're going to be going to a new planet, and the elder tree spirits would recruit those people that wanted to be trees on worlds.
Mm. And those are actual people.
They are actual people.
Right. So as far as the incarnational process goes, is there a linear? Some people have suggested that you start as a plant lab and then you become an
It's
animal.
all about your soul codes and your personal choice.
Okay, so any soul could incarnate as a tree,
An ant, a tree,
and
a dog, a
to
cat.
have the experience. In fact, in your readings yesterday, you had one lady who had come back as a cat in Florida, many times.
It was tired of living.
Yeah,
It was tired of living.
those were fascinating readings, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just mind-blowing information that it makes television and movies look like rotten potatoes.
Thank you.
Really, and it's the truth. And that's what makes it so beautiful. Is it resonates within the mind of the heart, which is what David, you and David were talking about yesterday. That's so important to intuitively understand the truth. And that's how we get it. We don't have to. Oh, wait a minute! I got to look this up in the encyclopedia, the Galactic Encyclopedia,
Exactly.
which nobody's written yet, or if they have, they're hiding in the Vatican or someplace.
With multiple fake copies
Yeah,
around
right.
that are altered.
Yeah.
You'll never know what's the real one.
Right, exactly. Okay, so then eventually, in those billions of years, there were first. Was there a first indigenous? Okay, this is where it gets tricky because you've got the timeline wars.
Right.
But was there actually a first human, quote unquote, species that was created here as a result of all these?
Yes.
Okay.
That represents the second layer of pyramid grids.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
The first layer of pyramid grids was the fresh consciousness that came to Earth. There was no first Earth species. So for many billions of years, Earth was this hub center spreading life to multiple galaxies. Another galaxy called the War Galaxy found its consciousness exploration and made people to go across the void and find out what was over there as a scouting mission. That scouting mission came through, and the first thing it saw was this giant seventh dimensional planet with no defenses, spreading DNA wisdom absolutely everywhere.
Wow.
They looked back, and all of a sudden over there, the troops lined up. The Galactic Prime Creator over there said, "Go ahead, it's a go." The other two creators over here said, "Okay, it's a go." And the war came in, and there were no defenses. They captured Earth and made a second pyramid grid to prevent them from reincarnating back into the planet.
Wow.
That's the first fortification.
Wow.
Okay?
Okay, and so that's 3 prime creators.
That agreed on that would happen.
Okay, now is there any relation between those 3 prime creators and the 15 beings?
No.
Okay, all right.
Well, 15 beings didn't
That's-
even know about Earth yet. Honestly.
Okay, so this comes much later. All right.
Drama 1.
Wow. Okay, so the prime creators, but
Agreed.
not
this Galactic Prime Creator we're in.
Okay, so where was that prime creator when these other 3 were planning on destroying?
Their war was nurtured in that galaxy to see what would happen.
Oh, well, don't you know?
They
hello.
didn't know. And
Oh,
it's
they
a free
didn't
will
know.
universe. They didn't know.
They didn't know what war would do.
No, it had never been done.
Okay.
That's how early this was.
Wow. Wow. And is that where they developed technology and clones and robotics and...
No.
No, okay.
Sentients used physical bodies, but representations that they brought with them from other universes.
And how did they travel?
Sentiently.
Okay, so this was all before technological...
Right, concepts even were
Right.
reintroduced to the system.
Because they didn't need it.
No.
Just like originally we were fully telepathic and able to create and
Correct.
Okay. Okay, good.
So, of all those trillion beings that were on Earth before it was captured, everything that we are going through now is a reflection of those original beings trying to get back in. Those trillions that formed Earth, the
Right.
pyramids, their energy went into the consciousness of the pyramids.
Right.
Those people, once their planet was captured,
Right.
began trying to mass incarnate into it over and over and over again. In each layer, they'd gain the world back, they'd lose it. They gain the world back, they'd lose it. They gain the world back, they'd lose it. That's the steps that we've been going through.
Ah.
And at each layer, they refortified the planet on an astral level so nothing else can get in, which gave the archonic grid the ability to take over spiritual courts.
Oh. So, who was it that brought in the Archontic?
That
Forces.
would be the second generation of dark entities that secretly incarnated here to take over from within.
And that's the 15.
That's the 15.
Right, okay.
Once they saw the drama start
Right.
and looking at the prime creators going, you know what, I want to be a prime creator. I'm sitting over here chilling, smoking my cigarette, and all of a sudden there's a whole big drama over there. They get in their fast cars,
Yeah.
drive over there and look.
Okay.
And then the other 15 that showed up, and you're like, hey, this is going to be fun.
Right.
Somebody grabbed the beer and the kegs. We're having a kegger over there.
So it's really as if the kids stole the car keys to the convertible and have been out,
Yes.
partying and creating.
I call them the kids on the coke bench.
Okay, I gotcha.
In the beginning there.
Yeah, but they're very powerful kids.
Yes.
And as a result, they have locked down the incarnational process, which
Right.
no longer allows anyone to graduate, or does it allow new beings to come in?
Only if they're lower vibrational.
Lower
can be
vibrational
dominated
beings.
and
So that's
controlled.
why we see the degradation of everything, and of course the imitation of and the reversal of esoteric symbols that are positive get reversed and duplicated in a false way or in a
Correct.
fake way, because they can't really create true
Reality.
Right. They can't. So they can only duplicate it, fake it, twist it around, and turn
Exactly.
it backwards and
And
upside
confuse
down.
you.
Yeah.
Take your memory away.
Yeah, add more fine print to your contract to say, not allow you to know that you're actually making an agreement when
Exactly.
through unconsciousness we are allowing them to do certain things. And we've been unconscious for so long and enslaved, in a sense enslaved.
Yep.
Our free will has been, shall we say, usurped,
Mhm.
that we've forgotten that we have free will. So when we start talking about free will as if we have it, we both have it and we do not have it. We have to regain it.
Mhm.
We have to understand what we had and don't have in order to take back what we truly have authentically and can claim as our own.
Mhm.
Okay, so you covered the first pyramid grid.
Okay. The second pyramid grid was the refortification process.
Okay.
This is the first layer of stone pyramids.
Oh.
They were duplicated by the capturing force, the dark entities that were able to get in here
Right.
and easy.
Pre-15 beings.
Pre-15
Yeah, okay,
beings.
gotcha.
They're like, party.
Yeah.
Well, when they were done partying, they said, look at this technology. We need it. We want to send it back to our galaxy, recreate it. Well, the light beings who were here were so disorganized, didn't know how to fight, and had to learn really fast. They called in other entities, mercenary units, we'll simply call them that. They're
Okay.
consciousness expansioning mercenaries who would travel to the war galaxy to figure out what it was.
Okay.
So they kind of knew.
Right.
They came in and started training different light beings, which would be angels. This would be like second, third, fourth generation of our universe. Made angels, and then they made support species for them.
Okay.
Pleiadians, Arcturians, so on and so forth.
Ah.
And those support species' purpose was to make sure there were scouts looking for people that wanted to take on this consciousness challenge that would be a intergalactic drama that would intertwine them into karma for millions of years.
Ah.
Many said yes, because this is a free-willed universe.
Right.
I want to know.
Right. No.
Flood
So
began.
and okay, and then not knowing that they may not be able to leave for millions of years, not
Correct.
understanding what was coming, and they may not have had the capacity to look into the future at that point.
But because there was not a time concept for Earth at that moment.
Okay.
Therefore, its true consciousness was revolving around a galactic center, but it was teleported to another galactic center, and then teleported to another galactic center, and then teleported to another galactic center. So it literally made it 7 dimensions of times from 7 galaxies. So it literally could function with the prime creator of 7 galaxies to determine how much spiritual commerce that the galaxies wanted to bring into this galactic ascension machine.
Now, were all of those seven prime creators, were any of them involved with this in kind of a, shall we say, on different sides of the light-dark scenario?
The prime creators are all neutral.
They're neutral, okay.
They're all neutral.
All right. All right.
There are sentients that are 4 to 5 steps below prime creator that take polarity on, because inevitably, even in neutrality, there's a need for polarity to keep the expansion of consciousness going.
Mm. But as you reunify, the polarity dissolves.
Correct.
Okay. And at what level does it dissolve? Like
That's hard to describe.
Okay.
It just does.
Okay. All right.
It gets to the point where the consciousness doesn't care about the creation of it. It simply is as part of its system.
Okay.
Just like blood flowing through your veins.
Okay. Now, one more question before we go to break, and that is the second refortification was with stone.
With stone.
And in our linear thinking, how many hundreds of thousands of years ago were the first stone pyramids created?
6.5, 7.5 million years ago. But there would be a 13 million year. Somebody figured out how to go into the actual invasion process and insert a reality so that a pyramid could be built at 13.5 million years ago. So it's crazy. Wherever you have a first, somebody else wants to make new firsts.
The new first, okay. But the idea that the pyramids might be 10,000 years old.
No, millions.
They're millions of years
Correct.
old. And if I'm not mistaken, one of my wonderful guests, Carmen Bolter, does a lot of work on Egypt and the pyramids. And it was through her that I discovered that the pyramids are not made of organic earth material.
Correct.
So according to some researchers, they were made from material that was not of the earth, partially.
Correct.
And were they floated in formed, or?
The original pyramid, Giza is not an original pyramid. Giza
It
is
isn't.
a pyramid built by the Atlanteans in the
Oh.
7th refunctioning of retasking of the fortification. Every
Okay.
time they made a new layer, they added more pyramids to it with different
Okay.
designs in them.
So the pyramids at Giza might be much less old. Where are the original ones that were made between 6
They
and
would be in the cardinal points of our planet.
so
But our
they're-
planet isn't the same size or shape that it was before.
Was it expanding?
It was as big as Saturn,
So it's contracting.
contracting.
So rather than having an expanding Earth theory where the crust,
Everything is contracted. That's why they're turning the control rooms down, because they don't want it to be a 7th dimensional planet. They want it to be the lowest possible so they can mass incarnate a species that is low density, so when they turn it up, they get troops that rapidly advance in science and wisdom and technology, and then can go out and attack the universe while they mass incarnate more into them and keep the machine only graduating warriors.
Wow, that's a pretty dire plan.
Correct.
And so that might be a good place for us to leave off, so that you come back for part 18 to find out
That's
what's
right.
going to happen in our galactic history in the future. Welcome back. This is part 18 of our galactic history. I'm Lance White, and I'm with Andrew Bartzis.
How you doing?
Hi. And we left off with a really intense conversation about the second fortification of the pyramids. So maybe you can pick up where we left off with where it goes into the third.
Okay. The War Galaxy scouts and the first invasion force capture Earth. Earth sentience has no defenses. It doesn't even know what war is. So they're kicked off.
Mhm.
Some are kept as captures. The dark guys bring in their initial technological things, refortify Earth on a technological level, and then look at these pyramids and go, we win here. They don't even know how to fight. So they refortified the astral grid and made a second layer of pyramids, and that layer would be to create a barrier between who can incarnate here and who can't.
Okay.
That's what they did. Earth was teleported so that the forces of light that wanted to get their planet back, they knew eventually would get their gear, their stuff in order, teleported into a vacant spot in the universe. Earth was heavily hurt by this teleportation. It was near death, and it gave out a cry to this universe and the 17 other universes out there, and trillions of species responded to that and began the migration pattern to Earth to heal it. The dark guys had about 45 million years equivalent, but Earth's time changes, so it really, you can't equate it. They had time where nothing was able to invade them and no one knew where they were at. And they were able to mass incarnate troops, train them, technologicalize them, and use the womb chakras of Earth to create DNA systems for warfare. They then spread out in a rapid succession and captured thousands of planets and made a layer of rings of domination and control, which they were going to move Earth into the center of. And as their domination and control spread, they would move Earth again and again and again and keep advancing the front. Earth was not in a condition to be teleported, but they still went out and started capturing. This is when the people that originally founded Earth said, there it is, we have to get there. And they started following the migration patterns of these energy spirits that were going to heal Earth. And they were able to get in and get back into the system underneath this new grid of incarnation and incarnate within the forces of darkness to create a revolution within inside them. Because that's the same thing the dark forces did when they incarnated back. It's always been to get the breeding patterns of there so that the consciousness of a collective over here can bond with the Earth collectiveness and use Earth for its original purpose. So Earth was recaptured, but domination and control had been given to tens of thousands of planets by the time they recaptured it. The light recaptured the planet and went to go refortify the energy systems there, and then Earth rejected everyone and said, I need to heal on my own, and then teleported herself into a brand new undisclosed location where both forces started to look for it again. The Lemurians, the people that understood Earth needed time, had been sending their air cities that I've talked about in other places into other realities with consciousness exploring devices that were looking for time travel energies based off of Earth's changes. Well, they eventually figured out what it was, and they arrived back and asked Earth that they could come back in, and then you have the Lemurian society that mass incarnates to Earth after she's finished healing. That Lemurian species, their air cities just came back in because they were leapfrogging back through time like I've described before. Because Earth had already created them. This is when the consciousness that was in this galaxy before the war galaxy came began to understood that this game that was being played here was going to go a really long time, and they needed to have a mass incarnation of species from multiple universes to defend against this war galaxy and resolve all of the karma from the initial beginnings.
Okay, so that takes us to is that the second Lemurian?
That's the first Lemurian race.
Okay.
They were destroyed when their technology and their spirituality didn't match. When they did, they were removed from that timeline, and Earth was teleported again. Therefore, anything that was time travel linked into the Lemurian society had no link in time. Therefore, they were back stuck outside of time until they figured out how to get back into the planet and restore that. That's why there's 3 falls, and then 3 falls of Atlantis.
Wow. Because of the broken time links.
Correct, because they kept moving the planet.
Oh.
And every time they moved the planet, they re-fortified it, so it was harder to get in and harder to get out.
Wow. Wow. And this is before the system of what's it called? I lost my train of thought here. The protective band that keeps anybody from in and out.
Okay, the quarantine.
Quarantine, right.
That was before. Other sentients are enforcing a energy quarantine here.
Okay, all right.
Earth can enforce its own quarantine, but the control rooms aren't being used for that.
Okay.
That's how Earth rejected everyone. It used its own energy system to say, no, I'm healing.
Okay, and then it created
its own first species.
Its own first species, which was one species.
One species.
Okay, and do we know anything about what that species was like?
Bigger versions of us.
Okay.
Taller, wider, more energy, 200 strand DNA.
200 strand.
DNA.
Wow. Wow. And we're down to how many? A couple of strands?
42, something like that, 48, whatever.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because there are some people with even limited than that. We just don't have the consciousness to perceive DNA on that level.
Right, right. But technically, the more strands you have, the more multidimensional access you have.
Correct. When that first species was created and those people were asked to come in and incarnate into those skin suits, that's the founding of this idea that the Earth skin suit can go anywhere. Remember I've talked about that it's got all the codes. Well, when you build a common suit that has all the sports car facilities inside it, and then bring in all the people that have all the codes to it, on top of the codes that it had already had from teleporting multiple times, and then having mass species come and incarnating in, before there was an incarnation grid, you just have the perfect suit.
Right.
The perfect suit.
Right. Now, how long did that, and as you said in an earlier moment, that didn't last long because Earth knew that...
They would be, as soon as the doors were open, they'd come.
Right. And so what happened after the first species?
That first species lived here about 3.5 million years, right around, there's not really linear time that I can describe it. It would be about, I guess, 199 million years from that range.
Okay.
There were dinosaurs on the planet, but they were a different type of sentience. They weren't here to interact with the war species and the light species and try to create peace. That was their ultimate function. That's who they asked to bring in, and all of us, the ones that knew that were coming in, that you had a light force and a dark force that were going to descend at rapid pace and just tear up whatever's there because they want this planet, and they're not concerned about soul family because they're bringing their own soul families in.
So did the dinosaurs know that they were going to be...
No, they wanted the dinosaurs there because those were resources that they could send to other planets.
Oh. Okay, so then what was the first invasion of the original beings?
15 multidimensional beings. This is where I'm saying this is where they become aware that there's this dramatic situation going on in the far part of the universe.
Okay.
So they're way over there, bored because there's nothing left to do. They heard about this war thing and go, what is it? So they start traveling and traveling until they get to the point where all of their leftover pieces back there are the accordion stretched out. They have to bring them forward, stretch the accordion out again and again and again until finally their little pieces go, oh my, look at this. Look at this. You have species that are in this timeout while Earth has said, no, you can't come and live on me. And these multidimensional beings that finally accordion up and come into Earth as trees, plants, dinosaurs, eggs, rocks, whatever. So they make agreements with Earth because Earth was still taking agreements. It's a different layer of commerce. And Earth didn't really understand that these multidimensional beings were that stretched out. And they began to get in and in and in, just as a spiritual invasion before. Earth was captured by the dark. The multidimensional beings were in there and went, oh my God, teachers. And they stayed as cells within there until they finally kicked out the dark guys, took over.
Wow.
The good guys come back in and think that the multidimensional beings are the bad guys. They kick out their surface guys, take over Earth. The multidimensional beings are stuck in, and they just sit there and just let it happen and manipulate the forces around there to keep battling over Earth.
Wow.
But they never got into the hollow Earth. They were only on the surface graduating timeline. And then the Galactic Ascension machine was formed with the 66 prime dramatic planets were all teleported into a central solar system with our sun, and they're like, does this get any better?
All right.
Exactly.
So when you brought up that image of the the 15 multidimensional beings, it brought up an stretching out like accordion, and then going again. It brought up an image of Dune, the beings,
The worms?
the
Yeah.
worms that the travel, and so that. Who knows? That could have been All right, so then the dark that had been battling and creating this ground and teleporting and doing all this stuff really set the stage for these 15 multidimensional beings to sit back and watch, and then wait for their moment to infiltrate.
Mm-hmm.
But they did it not necessarily through the beings that were there. Now, not all of them incarnated.
Correct.
Okay, so only a portion of these 15-dimensional beings incarnated into the trees, the land, the rocks. What else? The beings that were there,
And eventually the beings that were there.
and interbreeding with them,
Interbreed.
so that they would become soul family,
You got it.
and they'd have the codes to the DNA,
You got it.
and then could start having
Playing the game at their
the
level.
God game, yes. And then the dark beings that had been, having fun, taking over and doing all these wars and the rest of it, they saw these 15 beings as kind of probably like demigods or great teachers or something.
This is the ironic thing. Competition.
Oh, they did.
They never had competition in their war galaxy. They were the best of the best.
Oh.
Competition.
So they were battling with the 15.
Violently at times.
Okay. So
Violently.
This was a place of lots of massacres.
Well, not in that particular manner. The 15 multidimensional beings would literally go to battle versus some of the darks in an astral world that was, hand-to-hand combat, because they were brute forcing each other.
Wow.
But they couldn't beat the multidimensional beings because they were incarnated on Earth and had Earth sentience behind them.
Right.
Which is a tool that the dark beings gave on a pyramid layer. So whoever controlled the fortification process also had access to the Earth sentience to energize them in defense.
Oh my! So they had all kinds of aces up their sleeves long before. So they didn't care about the battle. The battle was they knew they had already won it.
Yeah.
And then
It was all about incarnating and then kicking them out of the surface control, and then waiting for somebody to come back and kick them out. Because they were all incarnating their vibratory beings to take over the surface graduating timeline.
And at what point did that occur in the 9 pyramid structure sequence of events? About third or fourth?
No, like 5th or 6th.
Okay.
Seventh is the fall of Atlantis.
Okay.
Second fall of Atlantis.
Okay, second fall is the 7th. Wow.
Yeah.
This is starting. The pieces are
Starting
kind
to add
of
together.
just yeah.
So each time there's a grid, there's a teleportation. Each time there's a teleportation, there's at the end of the old timelines. And all those beings that were coming back to get to that first species had to start over again.
Right.
That's why there's 72 first species of Earth.
Right. But they're all related.
Correct. Because they all come from that system, that suit that was here for everyone to take over.
Wow. And had things been allowed to occur in a way that had not been interfered with by dark entities, basically that kind of life form would have been duplicated in the womb chakras, and it would have been created as a positive life force.
It would have been more controlled and released instead of, all right, just mass invade with no warning.
And the organic incarnational process would have included. Would have continued.
Correct.
And at what point did the archontic grid get set up?
Mid-5th.
Mid-5th. Okay,
fortification.
so the 15 brought the archons in.
Yes, they actually had their own system of domination and control on other planets because they learned to play the game. So there's one system of domination and control in a cluster of galaxies here, and then the multi-dimensional being said, all right, I can start a cluster here, a cluster here, a cluster here, a cluster here,
Okay.
away from all these angelic forces that are battling them.
And then
And they just filtered in their resources.
Right. And so, how swift was the takeover of the incarnational process?
It took a while. It wasn't
Right.
instantaneous.
It was
It does take a while.
hundreds of thousands
Yes.
of years, technically, to replace the organic process with control systems.
Right.
And control grids.
And each time Earth's energy was stepped down to dimensional energy,
Ah.
they had to make whole new control systems, then step it down more and make whole new control systems, step it down and make whole new, because you're compressing the energy into its densest form.
Ah. Okay, so by the time you get into the ninth pyramid layer,
The last fortification.
the density of the planet has decreased to about
Third.
lower third. So each time, because each time the density is lowered further, so each fortification makes it more difficult. And at what point were were we isolated and nobody
Quarantine?
Quarantine, yeah.
About 306,000 years ago. But it ended, and then there was a time travel war that brought it to 400,000, but that ended. So 300,000, we'll just say.
All right.
But there were many instances where the quarantine grid wasn't supported the way it was supposed to be, because the good forces simply were out of power, out of energy,
And they
tired.
just, right.
And the Dark Eyes too. They literally, for a few million years, they just stopped fighting.
Okay.
Okay, because they just couldn't do it anymore.
And so during that few million years, when there was kind of like where they're kind of catching their breath and going for cocktails and food, was there a period of peace on the planet?
Yes.
Okay.
The planet needed to heal again.
Okay, so they could scar it all up again and
Right.
start new,
Exactly.
Okay. But they would always be the ones to start the battle.
No.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
The light
The light
beings
reached out and started the war, lit the tinder match many times.
Okay, all right. And that's where you get the light beings that have gone
To zealot.
to zealot mode, which is equally dangerous
Correct.
as the dark side that's
In zealot mode.
In zealot mode. So they're equally dangerous
Yes.
on either extreme of the.
But they're all healable if they choose to get back to a free will source.
They are all
Instead of-
healable.
Yeah.
And do they know that?
Probably not all of them. The ones that are so far in the zealot stage, they can see nothing but zealotry.
Will there be a moment when they will be allowed to see the other possibilities during this event period? And
They'll be the ones if they determine to allow that to happen to them.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's you out there that are listening. You have that choice, and you know it. And for the ones that don't know it, you're going to continue on doing what you do.
Until it's no longer possible.
So your services are no longer rendered, and you're given your pink slip and sent back for recyclement.
And recyclement is a second death.
That's right.
So, if you don't want to lose your consciousness and your awareness of these many billions and trillions of years of, what's been happening, then seems like it would be a wise choice, rather than being recycled, to join in the present game,
Right.
which is finally allowing people to ascend.
They're going to give you other opportunities to go have fun somewhere else.
Right. And so there can't be any harboring of, well, I'm going to pretend to join the forces of light, and then
There's the middle ground. Remember? There's the middle ground. Light can't exist without dark, and dark can't exist without light. But they can both exist with neutrality.
And the advantage that the dark forces have is that they're masters of it.
Yep.
So they know they can modulate.
Correct.
If they know that they can play a new game and have fun at some limited level,
Mhm.
and teach about
What they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. It could be quite an exciting role for the dark.
That's
And
right.
it would end all that, the battling and the more obvious unsubtle levels of play. It could become a more subtle game and a more enjoyable game when you know that you're also benefiting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Of course, they know that they're benefiting us in some way by playing their roles, but this is a whole new layer or level of ascension for them as well. It could be in
Service to self-ascension.
service to self, which we don't know. Philosophically, the Venusians have been arguing about this, and we don't know yet if there will be a service to self-ascension.
We don't even know what it means. It's all
It-
supposition.
Yeah, but that seems like that would be a place where it could happen, or it could be a seed idea in this final graduation, because the Prime Creator's come in and has read all of the records of every sentient life form here,
From the beginning to the end.
from the beginning to the end, including all the permutations
Yeah.
and the time wars. So
Absolutely.
that's not even a difficult task for Prime Creator
Prime
And-
creator of the universe.
of the universe, right?
Which is the same prime creator of every galaxy. just in different smaller pieces.
Okay.
Avatar, pieces part, avatar, pieces part, avatar, pieces part.
And the avatar is like a
Central hub
okay. Okay.
that controls the numbers of pieces parts that feed data to the avatar, and the avatar feeds data to other avatars who are collectives.
Huh. And when does it become a? When do you?
It's a neural network. It's all interactive.
Okay. When does it become? When do you know that you're real?
When do we know that we're real? When we're born, we come out of the womb, and we have our own omnidirectional field separate of the embryonic sac of the mother.
But we were sentient beings prior to.
Sentient beings with a skin suit in a time frame.
Okay. So, but before you enter into the body,
You're infinite.
You're infinite. You're infinite
With no time.
With no time, which is where you operate.
In no time.
No time. And which is where we are all operating in no time, which is something that once we become aware of the fact that there is no time, it's a social agreement, it breaks down.
Getting it. How many of these episodes, 25 minutes, seems like 5?
Oh, most of them?
All of them?
Almost all of them. There might have been one that kind of dragged along into about 15 minutes, but
We're chewing.
Yeah, right. So yeah. Okay. So now we've covered the. Now I'm kind of lost. Where are we at in terms of the?
Fourth.
We're at the fourth pyramid grid. Okay, pyramid grid.
Return of Lemuria.
Okay, which is the return, the first return.
We're back through time travel, air cities that I described about in the previous episode.
Okay, that's the first return of Lemuria.
First return of Lemuria.
The fourth pyramid.
First rays.
First rays.
First rays. Poof. Oh. We're here. We're back.
Oh, okay.
We're in Earth's dream world. They already have contracts with Earth from the future, and they set up a society, reuse the womb chakras, recreate a commerce that ultimately feeds the light sources so they can continue battling the dark forces. The whole while the multidimensional beings are like, let's just wait and see what happens.
Right.
We're going to have a little fun.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They are in subtle control of the incarnation grid, not full control.
Okay. Okay. Right. Because the subtle control occurred around the fourth pyramid, and then at the mid fifth is when the archons came in. Correct. With their whole structure already. Correct. With fine print with the soul contracts and
all that,
and not letting. Okay. All right. So let's leave off at the fourth pyramid and the return of Lemuria.
Yep.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Are we taking a break? Yes, we are.
Awesome.
All right. We will be back. This is Lance White with Andrew Bartzis.
How you doing?
Welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we left off with the fourth pyramid fortification and the return of the Lemurians, who were leapfrogging
back forth through time with their air cities.
And who was here at the time? They were remaking contracts with the Earth. Are they?
Lemuria goes, we're here.
Okay.
What is in Earth when Lemuria goes is here is a leftover species of refugees who did not go with the light or the dark but chose Earth, but still had the technology and the influence left over of that captured time. The multidimensional beings were trees, were sentients, were here, and bringing technology here too, secretly, and embedding it within mountain structures so no one could detect it, because everyone had their little secret stores here. So at this layer, Lemurians go, we're back, and all of a sudden all these other air cities that I described that are in the North Pole and the South Pole begin reappearing in the North Pole and South Pole and start dreaming again with Earth. And as they dream, they can spread forward into the omnidirectional field of universal time, identify where all the other lost air cities are, and bring them back. Because it's always about getting back to the beginning where they could reassert their species within these timeline concept wars. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden Lemuria is back, but there's corruption on the surface graduating timeline. They thinking they're going to graduate a bunch of people, it's all going to be fine and dandy. Well, war's on. War inside, war outside.
Wow.
So Lemurians were ready for the arrival of the dark forces and used an energy defense grid that basically just kept expanding and expanding the more energy they put into it. So the omnidirectional field of our sun increased 10,000 times. So nothing could enter our solar system or get in unless they had specific codes. The multidimensional beings said, okay, we're going to be the mafia. We're going to trade codes to the dark guys to get in, so they do our work for us. That's Lemuria's fall, teleportation of the planet, fortification number 5, the bringing of the Archons.
Okay. Fortification 5. Okay. Is when the Archons and
Are brought from the multidimensional beings, systems of clusters of domination and control they had in the far off sections.
Right.
They took entities that were in mid-fourth density, fourth vibration, whatever you want to call that, mass invested fake ceremonial energies in them because they had already created those systems just like the dark guys did, and gave them the God complex, and then shot them across the galaxy in an energy form until they went splat into Earth's incarnation grid, which was this omnidirectional field from the sun.
Okay.
The sun said, all right, you have DNA linkage to those that are on Earth, you're allowed in. So that's how they get in.
Wow.
And then they incarnate, take the first body, and begin to cause mass corruption within the Lemurian society because they are an omnidirectional field of entropy. Because timeline war is about entropy and co-entropy and how paradox is staved off. So once paradox happens, it ends and it returns to what it was before the paradox began. And if you start valuing in that the planet's teleporting, all these paradoxes, at least these timeline tangents end, and you have to find the new XY axis and start over again. So Archon's here. They rapidly take over the planet, and Lemurians' corruption, entropy field, they're gone. Their timeline to get back here is severed. Multidimensional beings then mass incarnate themselves and become 40% of the breeding population. This is when they're about 80 billion of the 89 billion people in the world, and 40% of them are the multidimensional beings.
Wow. And the purpose for that was to
Be soul family to everyone, because that's the type of domination and control that they were instilling.
Okay.
Which they had done on other worlds. Mastered here.
Mastered here. This was when they actually, this was their...
No mistakes here.
No, they had refined it to the point where...
Yes.
Okay.
The predictive science made it really easy. Because their goal is to lower the planet, lower the planet, lower the planet in energy. Therefore, all those high-powered dark and light beings had to send smaller minion forces and smaller dimensional forces and smaller and less trained forces to get in and do the same job that the big guys could do with one thought. You lower the iris, and only the entities that are in with that vibratory pattern of that iris can get in, so everything else has to puppet control inside there.
So it's kind of like the eye.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's the technological eye, or the false eye.
Correct.
That is controlling things, and that's also on the dollar bill.
Correct. The all-seeing eye. That's from the big institution of sacred geometry city, the sacred geometry linguistics, that everything that was a science to limit was created and then instituted in series to step down the consciousness from higher to lower to lower to lower.
And that's when they...
And then the actual pyramid control rooms would be used to step down the actual energy. Propaganda would be brought in, domination would be brought in, that lowers the energy even more, grid lowered again and again and again.
And at what point did the Archons, so they incarnated physically into people?
And then became energy beings afterwards, ascended inside.
Okay, so are they like ascended?
They essentially took over the position of the headmaster that allows graduation.
Okay.
That gives you the paperwork. And they also took over the spiritual courts of equity.
How did they get rid of the beings that were in those roles?
That's
what they do.
That's what they do.
Right. That's what they do. Yeah. So where you had an organic incarnation process that was working through spiritual equity,
correct.
You then had the Archons then incarnating and then expanding out into controllers with control of the spiritual court,
correct,
for incarnation, and that's when they are inserting fine print,
correct,
into the soul contracts. So rather than coming in, having a soul plan and working it all out, you choose your family or however that happens, and then you have an experience and you graduate, you get to leave. They then lock down the ascension process.
Correct.
And so those souls that are coming in start repeating karmic lessons and having further karma heaped onto them.
Correct.
And debt, right? And then the dark side, or the 15 beings, have fun, turning up the volume on drugs, sex, mafia, this and that, the political control, wars.
Exactly.
Explosions of atomic bombs, secret underground bases, which of course already existed because they incarnated into the mountains and so on and so forth.
Yep.
Excluding Telos and the renegade groups, which had been able to keep them from...
Took over Hollow Earth.
Okay.
Multidimensional beings and Lemurians never took over Hollow Earth. The
Okay.
Hollow Earth was the sentience, that was the sacred neutral sentience, that is the original soul family to Earth. When Earth was made a planet.
Okay. So in terms of who we would organically align with in terms of the highest vibration, it would be those beings in the Hollow Earth.
Correct.
Okay.
Though they've migrated in and out, but they migrated to keep their species going, to make sure there was always a complete soul code of the original species, all of them, in our museum of sorts. I mean, it's not a museum; it's a place to live, but
Yeah.
they have everything that's existed on Earth there.
Yeah.
Everything's been saved in there.
Okay, so including extinct species,
Correct.
they exist in the Hollow Earth, and do they exist also above and beyond?
Somewhere on other planets, but as long as
Okay.
they exist in the Hollow Earth, they can once again be respawned through the womb chakras and then be given out back again.
And who controls the womb chakras now?
Well, no one really controls them. They're under their suppressed Earth energy right now.
Okay.
And if they were allowed to naturally form, consciousness would expand there 1,000,000-fold. So that's why they put war on them, the destruction and debt and fake dream cities and all the other technology on top of them.
So every major city is a grid that's basically, if you want to be controlled, go to the big cities.
Correct.
and any city that, well, they've all been corrupted, even the small.
Though as soon as you change the energy grid, the sacred geometry negativity in those cities can be retasked.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a difficult job, and in fact, there'll be many people that raise their hand right away for volunteering.
To
Re-engineer it.
Re-engineer, right, to a high energy system. With
The foundation piece is already there. They just have to make new circuitry connections.
Okay. All right, and so all of the places where there is current warring is most likely a valuable piece of property, a spiritual property.
Exactly.
And that's being suppressed. It can't be destroyed, technically. Well, it could.
If you nuke it, you did what the Lemurians and Atlanteans did to get the multidimensional beings off. They decided to nuke those places, knowing full well that it would be harming multidimensional beings on many levels. But they had no choice. How do you get the corruption out? Scorch and burn.
Wow.
Knowing that their timeline would end and they can come back and do it again.
Right. So there have been nuclear battles.
Even worse than nuclear.
Even worse.
Yeah.
Probably technological designs that are way more.
Just incineration of flesh and all the technology is left.
Wow.
Or disintegration of flesh.
Wow. And that technology still exists in the hands of
Everyone.
everyone.
They just don't use it.
Why not?
It serves no purpose. You kill the graduating class.
Then
Everybody
what do you
wants
do?
us. They want this graduating class. It's bloated full of people that need to get out of here.
Right. And of course, Prime Creator has a say
Right.
because there's an original plan
Right.
that has gotten so corrupted and polluted and that
Because of free will.
right, and that was
And it was the restraint of the upper creators to not use their free will to go in and allow us to solve it. Even though the few times they came in, which was to set up the Council of 12, which was to give a set of rules that eventually they all broke,
right.
but it was at least to give it a theme instead of the craziness that it was.
And then, of course, the Council of 12 got perverted. And,
Exactly.
Yeah, it was. We've talked about that already. And presently, so where we're at now is that the Council of 12 is being reconfigured.
They would have been made in the same time as the Archon grid, but they weren't given the task by Prime Creator until 490,000 years ago.
Okay. All right. So this brings us to the fourth pyramid fortification. Has that taken us to the fifth?
We're already in the fifth.
We're in the fifth.
Fifth is a creation of the Archon grid.
Okay.
And a refortification of the grid, so it makes it even more difficult to
Right.
incarnate here,
Okay.
which gives new layers of control to the spiritual courts of equity.
And so this is like I was going to use the word acceleration. This is like a rapidification of the densification process
Correct.
at around the sixth fortification layer of the pyramid. Okay.
So in between the fifth and sixth, Lemuria raises and falls
Right.
again.
Okay, and is that the second? Fall?
Second raise and fall.
Okay.
Third raise, fall.
Okay.
In between this
Okay.
process. Because they had been locked out of the Time War.
Right.
They had to go once again figure out where in the universe the planet was, and then
Right.
relink to its dream time grid and bring everyone back in so they could assert their tangent timeline again.
Okay. Now where the Atlanteans come in?
They don't meet the Lemurians jump into a time where Atlantis, who was a new time traveling community, just happened to figure it out a little bit before the Lemurians. So they're there. They race quickly, but all of a sudden Lemurians will go, "We're here. Hey, who are you?" And that's when they go, "Oh, you're our descendants." And they go, "Wait, you're our ancestors." And then there's a big war.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they all just randomly meet, and the Dark Eyes meet, all at the same time.
Wow. Well, was there any accident in that?
No. It's synchronicity on a grandest scale.
On the grandest scale. So this is like, okay.
All the while, the multidimensional beings out there pulling the strings to make these guys fight even harder.
Right, because they want that to happen.
They want that to happen.
They want the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria because they
get the technology, the souls, and the incarnation grid, and the fortifications.
Wow. And then the Archons are busy,
filtering out, I don't like you, your soul group's not cool, you're cool, get in.
Wow. So from this period, we have a time when the incarnational process has been thoroughly corrupted, and nobody's graduating, and then they're deciding who comes in and who goes, and they're adding fine print to the soul contract. They're also booting incoming souls that are reincarnating. In from where they had probably planned out, oh, I've got this family and I'm going to do this. And then at the last second, they're booted over to a dysfunctional family where their life lessons are, pedophilia and drug use and slavery and so on and so forth.
Go.
Okay.
Bait and switch.
Bait and switch. And so that's been going on for
a long time.
And now we have super soldiers and targeted individuals. It's just it's ramping up, and it's like it's like a spiritual being eating itself.
Yep,
Cannibals, and nobody wins in that sense.
Nope. That's why the Prime Creator did the timeout. That's why he did the audit. That's why he's doing the walk-ins.
Okay, and the walk-ins are coming in now.
Correct.
Meaning June of 2013 on, and this whole time period is the when the Monopoly game is scheduled to end, right?
It's like the bank is out of money.
Right.
Monopoly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mom's saying go to bed. The bank is out of money, and Mom says go to bed.
Yeah. And
you just landed on my boardwalk and I'm about to pay.
Right. So this is the moment we're in. And even though it looks as if life is going on as usual, and the banks are still there,
Yep.
and the Vatican still controls, supposedly, and the Queen still has all her jewels, and the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and whoever else is, pulling the strings, and the Archons are reincarnating, leftovers that are, and soul pools, generic soul pools, and then,
Yep.
incarnating astral shells, right? So those are ones that didn't graduate, that are probably of the dark nature, and they're giving them life and sentience so that they can work on the dark side.
Exactly. You're getting it.
So this is going to be an interesting time, no matter how you slice it.
Right. Multi-dimensional cake.
Right. Okay, so we're at the
with
sixth,
seventh dimensional frosting.
seventh dimensional frosting. Yeah, right. Um, so this is the sixth fortification and the seventh fortification of the pyramid
Correct.
structure. Okay. Now, what happens at the seventh and the eighth? Because it goes to the ninth, right? Okay.
In between the seventh and eighth, Earth is teleported 3 more times.
Whew.
Okay,
Wow.
each time being wounded heavily.
Because that's a difficult process.
It wasn't a natural unity consciousness drive. Somebody ripped it out of its place with the several dozen planetary consciousness can come together and psychically attack a planet and rip it out of its reality and implant it in a new reality, just like picking a seedling up out of the ground and putting it somewhere else.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was this a totally unexpected?
It was a natural play, a move.
Okay.
A move by the light and the dark, because they both did it.
Oh.
And then the multidimensional beings were able to do it on a much more polluting way, on purpose.
Okay. How did
So
they?
the light forces and the dark forces tried to limit the damage, but ultimately the damage was severe anyways.
Hmm.
The 15 multidimensional beings, they did it in such a way that it was damaging and very polluting to the environment, so that they could limit even more people and kick more people out of the incarnation grid, that they had to go back into the machine and go to other parts to experience of the 66 other planets. Said, now the game's closed for a while, get out, no admittance, no vacancies.
Oh. So does this have anything to do with the technology that creates weather and that we don't get into that?
Weather is consciousness control. Chemtrails is to create weather and to insert fear and whatever fear porn they want to add on top of it. When they change weather and they target a city, the weather goes over the city, can help harvest the energy more, to bring more energy in, to bring pain, death, destruction, whatever. It is to mine your consciousness and to affect your consciousness. That's why there's
Right.
weather control wars.
Okay.
It amplifies their MK axis.
Okay, and then that has to do with artificial intelligence monitors
Correct.
literally everything is being
And that's how I adjust and massage the data, by creating weather patterns.
right, and then that gets back to the etheric controls, this etheric satellites,
Yes.
and the control rooms that are psychically
Linked to everything.
And the
create the predictive modelings.
predictive modelings. Right. Okay, so at the eighth juncture,
Atlantis is on its second fall.
Atlantis is on its second fall.
And this is when Atlantis realizes the trial of the Lemurians is the same trial of them. That's when they're the same ancestors, but each experienced each other differently. Okay, well, the Atlantids trying to create a first species. The Lemurians, all the dark force and all the light force, all try to create a first species.
Yeah.
And the Atlanteans are suddenly realizing all these other time-traveling forces that decided not to overinvest. They just wanted one little mission to
Okay.
get their seed in there and then hide it somewhere in a local reality until finally the machine was near done grinding everyone up and their seed would survive. Just like a coconut floating on the ocean takes root on an island and grows. It could take 70 years for that coconut to grow. Many smaller species were doing that on Earth. That's why there's 72. So all of them amalgamate into the soul families of Earth, and then all the soul families migrating to Earth, interbreed with that, interbreed with the multidimensional beings, and you have what we are today, 2,200 primary soul families, 2,300 separate races, all mass invested.
So everybody's got a stake in the game.
With a skin suit origin that Earth created to have to be the Ferrari.
Yeah, but we're riding around in a broken down.
Or Ferrari with $40 wheels and broken windows,
Yeah.
rust,
Yeah, and holes in the floor where the Flintstones are trying to.
AM/FM,
Right. It's a piece of junk.
It's a piece of junk. It's a hoopty.
Okay, and most of us realize that this is what's happened because it seems like there's literally no way out, no matter how you
There's
turn.
always been a way out, claiming of your sovereignty.
Well, okay, that brings up.
And that's why Atlantis and Lemuria were such powerful societies, and why so many of us, even though we come with a clean slate, inevitably remember it, because it's so impressive in the Akashic Records. And when you dream, you can dream in the Akashic Records. You can. And that's
Okay.
where you come back, and that's how you have the knowledge of Atlantis and Lemuria in your own heart. And when you read books that other people do, that it connects to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, where are the... Okay. So we're at the 8th pyramid.
This
Fortification.
is where the Atlanteans got serious about creating control rooms that would take the weapon systems away, weapons and defensive systems away from any future sentience. They expanded the control rooms faster than the multidimensional beings could recover from what was going on. And at that point, they created all these additional control rooms, all these control features. Everyone had to be soul family, and all 2,200 species had to be represented in the control rooms in unity consciousness.
Okay.
Knowing that the two forces were all enforcing disunity, disunity, disunity.
Okay. Okay. Good.
So they made it very difficult to take over all of them.
Okay. And how many control rooms are there?
40.
40. And the 15...
21. But there's both light and dark within them.
Okay.
And then there's 19 that they don't know where they're at. They're locked out and controlled by the Hollow Earth Agartha network.
Okay. So it seems that the game at this point, part of the game would be for gaining access and control of those 21.
Correct.
They've probably given up on the 19 because they're not.
They're always trying to get in the Hollow Earth. Always trying. They're looking for a chink in the armor.
Okay.
And we're the armor.
Okay.
We're the graduating timeline. They're the ones they're beating up for your lunch money and to see if anyone's going to come up to stop you.
Okay. Right. So the more that they can attack us, the more they can find out who's protecting us.
There you go.
Oh, very clever.
It's a shakedown up here.
Okay. Well, that seems like a good place to leave off here. And then when we return, we'll segue from the 8th to the 9th pyramid fortification.
And then the last teleportations.
And the last teleportations. Okay, the 9th. Okay. All right, we shall return. Welcome back. This is part 20 of our Galactic History. I'm Lance White, and I'm with Andrew Bartzis.
How you doing?
Well, we have gotten up to the 7th and 8th pyramid fortification and the second fall of Atlantis.
Second fall of Atlantis, when they truly realized the direness of the circumstances.
And then they create the control rooms to
lock out everyone.
Right.
So that they would only be in unity consciousness creation of the control rooms. So it locked out the weapon systems, the defensive systems, and the remote attack systems that were created by Lemurian Atlantis hybrid technology.
Okay. So then that brings us to the 9th.
The 9th is the final fall of Atlantis, and the final spiritual invasion, mass investment of light forces, dark forces, and multidimensional being forces.
Okay.
As well as the rest of the 2,300 separate races that said, oh, this is the last inning, everyone's getting in. Everyone's getting their playtime before the quarantine's enforced.
Okay,
they all knew it was coming.
So the quarantine hadn't happened yet.
Well, it had been happening in sections, but every time you teleport it, you got to find it again to re-quarantine it.
Ah, okay.
This is where the last of the teleportations come in.
Oh, okay. So
the whole solar system is teleported, not just the Earth at this point.
Really?
Yeah.
The whole solar system.
All the beings are migrating.
Right.
So if you move the whole solar system, the migration's got to make a U-turn and go somewhere else. It was all about stopping these mass migrations, so the only way you can do that is moving the planet or the whole solar system.
Ah, so then you've got migrating souls going, la-di-da-di-da, whoops, where is it?
I got a map.
It's gone. It's funny.
Exactly.
Okay, and then it's teleported to just wherever.
Far away.
Far away in a distant land. Okay.
It'll take forever to figure out where it is, and then you got to get there.
And you have to be able to trace the energy signatures at some point. So
this is where the Arcturian Collective begins its mass investment into Earth with master avatars that are in full connection to multiple collectives. Because they knew the quarantine was coming and that domination control was going to take place, and they needed to have that DNA in the mass quantities of DNA that we're interbreeding with. So even if the negative beings would get Arcturian technology out of the skin suit, it was all right because the many thousands of years in the advance, would also have the advantage of the Arcturian collective technology built inside your skin suit, as well as the Pleiadian, the Sirian, the Greys, the Zay, all of them.
Okay, so in other words, there, as I'm interpreting this, there would be a way to
Implant your collective into the DNA.
Right.
So if a soul from your collective was in a skin suit that had the codes you were looking for, you could bypass the forgetting mechanism of being born in here and have access to your collective information in union with your sentience.
Is that happening to a lot of people today?
Yes, that's why people are being activated and having sudden communications. They're not channelers, they're remote experiencers.
And does this have anything at all to do with the incarnation of the various indigos and crystals?
Exactly.
It does? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
they
that
kept ratcheting up the skill level and the skill level, the skill level, so that they could come through and have a higher probability of success.
So what's next on the rollout?
Just miracle kids.
Miracle kids, right? That come out and they're glowing and everybody's healed in the room and
Not that fast, but it does get to that point.
Does it? Yeah, it seems like that would be a natural progression, and that there would be an ability to become luminescent and.
Well, perceptive is luminescence. Our perceptions change. Our bodies don't necessarily luminesce unless you create that effect. And that Bible luminescence where you see a lot of the pictures where they got the halo and that was them trying to describe that that's a multidimensional being, that when you talk to me, you understand when you've been the last couple of days you've been around me, you see the average human me, and then you see me in no time in instantaneous response and question and answer.
Yes, yeah, and it is a different experience. It's not. Well, I was going to say it's not dramatic because you're always a continuity, and I see the compassionate healer. And the person who does readings and the person who feels, and I see the multidimensionality of you, and the more I see of your various aspects, the more deeply moving it is for me to be around you.
Thank you.
And I suppose that's one of the, I know I'm diverting off this topic briefly, but that's one of the pluses and pitfalls, that when people begin to recognize the truth and the feeling behind you, there will be many who want to be with you, spend time with you, ask you questions, and so on and so forth. So do you have a way to deal with the explosion of interest in you as a...
The multidimensional me does.
Yeah.
And the me that's not always in contact with the multidimensional, because I don't need to know everything.
Right,
in fact, I don't want to
right.
because it's too much.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's just too much at times.
Yeah.
Turning the skill on is a skill.
Yes.
Remaining in the field is a skill.
Yes.
Doing what I do is my passion while I'm using that skill.
Right.
And that passion is to give everyone the heart sense truth from the Akashic record and allow their tools of discernment to let the energies filter through. So the detractors will be the detractors. I'll give them no energy, and the only energy they've received is those that are in defensive detraction. In situations where people are coming to me for readings, right now there's several people outside waiting for readings, and I already did enough readings for this weekend. I cannot do any more if I'm going to complete this project.
Right.
So yes, unfortunately, I do have to make that physical choice when to stop and to turn it off.
Yeah.
When I get back, there'll be several hundred Skype messages waiting for me, several hundred emails. I get 200 to 300 emails a day now. Before these last shows went viral,
Right.
so you can only imagine the volume of people that are trying to communicate to me. And I get these messages in Skype that are like 30 pages long, my entire life story.
Wow.
Because they know they can't get a hold of me, but just writing that and sending that to my energy completes something for them.
Right. Which is something that our shamans teach us that we can do, is writing it down and then burning it. It doesn't even have to go to anybody, as long as you have acknowledged yourself and your own story. So, okay, well that helps me to answer that question. So
I'm just a person like everyone else.
Right.
I'm choosing to do this, and you're choosing to do this because it feels right.
Right.
David's here doing this, and everyone else here is doing this because This is our time of sovereign free will and expressing soul family will. That we don't want to live like this anymore.
Right. We have had it.
Had it.
We have
Here's
had it.
Here's what they've done to make us say I've had it.
Right. Right. And if anybody who doesn't get it needs to listen to what they've done, so they can reach the point where their spiritual anger and hackles rise to the point where they say, "Oh my God,
yeah, enough's enough.
That's it. No more."
Put on the gloves and the boots and the shovels and the picks and start digging into
I'm
it.
pulling the plug on the banking system, pulling my money out of the bank, whatever. I'm not giving any energy to anything that has to do with the tools of domination and control. And that is pretty much everything on the planet. All the marketing and everything. Okay. So, so the ninth pyramid fortification was the last one.
The
when
last of the
Atlantis
sentients of Atlantis that ultimately knew there was a corruptive force in their incarnation pattern that they could never prevent. That no matter what they did, the volume that was there, no matter what time wars they did, there was no chance for them to go back to the beginning and change it. So the only other choice was to go to the end.
Right, and the end is
Now.
now.
2011 to 2014. This is where all of the 2,300 species that have been doing time wars is manifesting everything that they're doing because they realized they couldn't go back to the beginning and change it, so they had to invest into the future or layers into the future. So all of their propaganda, technology, spirituality stuff all popped up just before the awakening, just before Earth pops out of the densest part and into the lighter part with the rest of the solar system.
Now that has to do, that also has to do with Mars.
Correct.
Earth and Mars are part of the consciousness of Earth.
Yep.
And so there is we are the ones who are raising our consciousness. And so depending on how that occurs, whether we become less conscious as a collective or more conscious, determines which one enters first into the higher field, which
Correct.
is Earth or Mars.
It's a little slight thing here.
Okay.
Mars is a planet. The sentience of Mars is essentially in a coma.
Oh,
I've talked about this in another show a few times. I don't really talk about it a lot, but Mars was essentially dead, and then it was teleported into the Galactic Ascension machine, and all the people on it were sent to triage planets to be healed, and then souls went into Mars to bring the planet from death state to suspended animation state, and then all the people that were in triage centers were brought back and turned into planetary healers and took the contracts of the planet over because the planet was a mass technological system that spread defensive tools of domination and control, weapon tools of domination and control. Then it was captured and light forces created light tools, light healing technologies. So the planet was very central in the spreading of domination and control and healing technologies. So it was a central piece of the dramatic lines of puzzles that they needed people to incarnate here. If Mars was out of the puzzle, as much as 40% of the migration forces would go somewhere else. That's how vital Mars is. So when Earth comes out, if we heal right, we heal Mars. Mars comes back to life as a sentience and completes this process faster.
okay.
If not, Earth comes out and Mars, the sentience, will determine if it dies off and if there's the prime creator has a walk-in sentience to Mars. And then the people on Mars alive right now, they won't die. They'll be given new contractual obligations in a more free way to get rid of the karma of the drama there.
So is there an advantageous is there an advantage for one or the other to?
Yes, if Earth and Mars go collectively,
Yeah.
then there is a great healing, and a lot of the war dealings get dealt with right away. That war karma gets eliminated out of our consciousness and healed much faster.
So then it would appear on Earth as if all wars stop and something would be.
There would be a series of synchronistic events
Okay.
that bring the war hawks, the chicken hawks, to their knees
Oh.
in psychic form,
Okay.
and they would no longer be attached to that zealot tangent
Oh, nice.
because their field of energy doesn't exist for them to be in that zealot tangent anymore.
Nice. Well, in any case, that will be part of the eventuality. That will
Correct.
be, yeah. So no matter how it works out, it's a matter of timing, and we don't know yet how the level of consciousness will proceed
Correct.
because there are so many players throwing their last cards out, and who knows? Is it possible for these players at the card table to have cards hidden? But is
All of them have royal flushes right now.
wow.
Who wins and everyone has royal flushes? The dealer.
Oh. And who was that?
Earth.
Earth. Oh, all right. So
She gets to go her sentience. They're playing with just the graduating timeline. And yeah, they're screwing with Earth, putting saddles on her, attacking her, and stopping her from doing what she can do. But when we awaken, she awakens even 1,000-fold. And the system of domination and control is just hairs to them.
Oh.
To her.
so
So they can be plucked off or colored or whatever they want.
if she was fully sentient right now,
She could make all the dark eyes pink, sparkly, unicorn-looking things.
Oh my God.
No fear anymore.
Wow. So when she is released from her slavery and imprisonment, which is also ours, which
Correct.
we share, then we're all
She's enslaved until we are enslaved.
until we are,
If we're enslaved, she's enslaved.
right? And if she is,
We are.
are.
So
Okay.
if one gets free, they're all free.
We're all free. So, but
And
it's not likely that we would be freed first.
That's how the unity consciousness bombs were created.
Okay, the unity consciousness bombs.
These are devices that were created during the Atlantean times, the second fall of Atlantis,
Okay.
to be weapon systems that were spread out into the mass clusters of systems of domination and control that we implanted on these surface. They're
Okay.
crystalline subjects that had unity consciousness among them, and they would broadcast 5 or 6 seconds of intense unity consciousness with the planet, which allowed people to have a moment of infinite to break the system of domination and control to wake up the planet or the people,
Wow.
and therefore they could form their own rebellion from that brief moment of infinity.
And in infinity, you have all time. You have everything.
You have all the skills, all the time, all the energy.
Yeah, you can just take your time, and that's why the graduation party can last as long as you want.
Correct.
Because we're in infinite no time.
Correct.
We're truly infinite beings of
Correct.
light at that point.
Correct.
That have our 2200.
By being so related to Earth, you're an infinite being.
Right. And will we be able to have access to that wonderful skin suit that she created originally?
We'll have even better.
Better. Oh,
Even
wow.
better.
Wow.
Even better.
Wow. Oh, I can't wait. Yahoo! Now, there's a couple of questions that popped up. One is, there's been a lot of speculation about the octahedron, or the I think it's a geometric shape on Saturn that spins around, and the rings of Saturn being artificial. What is Saturn? I mean, are those rings?
Those are rings.
What are they?
They're a way to store souls in cold storage.
Oh,
Very low density, very low experience, and there are constant barracks reserve of troops that are used as a defense or attack force for invading planet ships coming in or going out.
so they're
It's a weapon system, but it's a
Yeah.
sentient planet. But at the same time, it has a consciousness in it that isn't the best guy. You
Sauron.
spoke to yeah, you know, yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
the Lord of Darkness.
Correct.
Yeah, he is the one ring holder, or the one that wants to hold over.
You and George have talked about him, Catsavalis.
Oh yes. Yeah, very interesting. And then
And he's here in the game too. He wants the Earth Galactic Ascension machine.
Saturn.
Yeah.
So,
And then some of the other ones do too. If
yeah.
Mars were
Oh,
ever,
right.
Mars would ever wake up, Saturn and Mars would be not happy.
Right.
If he ever woke up out of his coma, it would be gloves off, 50-round bloody boxing match.
It wouldn't be much fun.
I would like to sit and watch popcorn and watch
Oh,
those two
well,
battle
yes.
it out and say goodbye, get out of our solar system, and don't come back.
Right.
Hear me? Don't come back.
Yeah. Never.
We don't want you. You're pink slipped.
Exactly. So, so no matter how you slice it, we win. Everyone wins, and then all of this this all of the control systems are removed. The archons are removed. The incarnation, we graduate, and then finally there can be some movement with the.
All that blossoms in a omnidirectional linear expansion based on how fast the consciousness of our planet grows and grows and grows and grows and grows.
And once she's released, it seems like she has infinite possibilities.
Right. To heal us, so our consciousness raises faster, so she can raise her consciousness at the same time.
Right. See that, folks?
I think Saturn got
Saturn
mad. Saturn got mad.
Took a poke at us. Saturn took a poke. Are we? Well, we'll continue. And
leave that
and
in.
And Mars is, yeah, Mars is there with the
big angry
the
bee.
bees. Yeah, sending in the bee people. Okay, so see, you got a wonderful demonstration of how these things work. It's both as above and below, and metaphoric, and right here in your own reality.
That's right.
So as you're sitting in your rooms, watching YouTube, if something happens around you, a window breaks, a bird flies into
Door goes open.
Yeah, there are no accidents.
None.
We are in total synchronicity, and when you're in no time, everything is synchronous. It's just a matter of being aware of it.
You're so right.
Okay, so one of the questions I wanted to get in case I don't get a chance to ask it today, is about the pyramids and the Sphinx and the Edgar Cayce material, that there's an underground paw and blah 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 blah, that the pyramids actually are a ship, and that the Illuminati tried to put a capstone on the pyramid recently, right?
The pyramid is a ship.
Okay.
As I described earlier.
Right.
Even the stone ones are
Even the stone ones are ships.
Okay.
And they're multidimensional.
And then they're multidimensional.
And they're etheric.
And they're etheric.
Okay.
The Sphinx is the same thing. It's just built in a different field.
Oh.
It has a different kind of omnidirectional field.
Oh.
And its actual purpose... Hold on, let me scale this down a second. You have the first installations of dominant control religion, but it still allows consciousness expansion, and you still have at least half of the user manual to your body when this was created. They didn't take away the whole user manual.
Okay.
So the Sphinx was a place where priests and priestesses of high energy, both light and dark, could go to commune with the Earth source or any other planetary sentient source that would give knowledge and wisdom to both light and dark sides. There was this, best way to describe it, certain spots of Earth where both light and dark could come and not fight each other. The land was set up where they would just debate, learn, find a way to come together. And the zealot ones would just stay away at that point. So there was always something, and you still had members of the neutral force there that could come in and moderate, like the Venusian philosophers that would come in and moderate and broadcast these things. And the Sphinx would be used as this central source so that both light and dark priestess can commune to the same source and get the same answers while looking at each other and see the synchronicities there. At the same time, the Sphinx would store wisdom and knowledge within the stone structure of all the decisions that were made during these debates, and it would record all of the light and dark debates. So if anybody wanted to come to it, at the base of the pyramids, which were consciousness expansion devices, you have this consciousness to storage teaching machine. As for Edgar Cayce's thing under the foot, it's a metaphor, but it is there inside the Sphinx, and you need to learn how to read the records of that Sphinx. And there are other Sphinx that store other records for other purposes, for other factions in that time frame. The Mayans and the Aztecs and the Toltecs had their own versions too. The people of Easter Island, the people of Japan, China, they had all their own versions of these knowledge storing devices. They're all over.
And many of them are still intact, and
but many of them are in polarity, not in neutrality. Some are in neutrality, which are essentially copies of the Akashic record. Some are a polarity of light and dark, and some are an in-between interpretation.
All right. What about this? What about what's Jupiter's role in all this? Did I ask a loaded question?
You asked a really loaded question. Let me give this answer a second here.
Okay, take your time. We're in no time.
Jupiter is a joker in the deck.
Really?
It can bring whatever it wants to bring and break rules.
Ooh.
And it has an ego,
Okay.
and it has many children planets that are waiting to come in and take over the other 66 planets' roles.
Oh.
So, in one sense, it's a dominant controlling force,
Uh-huh.
passive dominant control. It's
Okay.
not as aggressive as what we have here.
Right.
It's still a dominant controlling force, but it comes from another universe that allowed limited free will. And it's trying to bring in enforce this concept of limited free will into the Galactic Ascension machine, which isn't a bad thing. But at the same time, now it's recraving our total sovereignty, and total sovereignty doesn't align with limited control.
Right. Right. Because Earth was created as a free will planet with both light and dark
And neutral.
and neutral. And what's happened is the dark has outmaneuvered
Everything.
everything.
Well, the multidimensional beings, which are technically dark, but they're all three, and they allow themselves to be all three, so they could play the game of all three to win at the end to be prime creators.
Okay. How do they win? By
Getting one of their pieces parts to prove something that was impossible to all the other sentients of the universe, and say, I did it, and here's the middle finger. And now I'm going to go out and conquer each and every one of your galaxies and give you the middle finger again and again and again until you stop me.
wow, it doesn't seem like a very positive outcome.
That's why we have a prime creator who come in and did walk-ins and timeouts and ejections. Somebody started cheating.
The prime creator.
Well,
no, they were cheaters.
Yeah.
Prime creator simply was
reinforcing
rebalancing
the rules.
Right,
Exactly.
But not really a hard reinforcement, and more like
a
soft.
15-yard penalty.
Right, like, okay, hold on.
Personal
time out.
foul, you're
Right.
ejected, 15-yard penalty.
Seems awfully gracious to me. I would have just,
They're
slapped them.
interlocked all the time where so you can't take one out, and they purposely
Right,
entwine themselves
that's
to our soul
right.
families,
That's
so you
right.
couldn't just erase them.
That's right. Okay. Okay, so I think, are we coming up to, yes, we are coming up to, well, that flew by, like the bee and the flying lights. So that's the end of part 20, and
Very good. We're
we'll,
looking forward to do many, many more. of
many,
these.
many more, right. There's infinite time for us to share this information and have fun with it. Because this is our time to have fun.
Yep.